Right, okay guys, so I thought I would do this video just to kind of explain what's been going on with the channel and also what's been going on with me recently. You would have noticed that I've had various live streams that have gone up and then they've been taken down because something's gone wrong. 9 times out of 10 I've put in my community tab that the reason for that is because of my health, etc, etc. So there's been a lot of things going on. Videos have not been as regular. They've been a bit sporadic, all sorts of weird stuff. So I thought I'd do a video just explaining what's been going on. So end of August, beginning of September, went on holiday with the family. We went to Newquay. And while we was there, we visited a place for football golf. Worst designed place I'd ever been to in my life. Because when you're playing golf of any kind, including football golf, it normally helps if the ground you're playing it on is kind of even, if you like. But for some reason, this seemed to be on an incline, only in one direction, all the way around the course. So every time you kick the football and you missed the hole, you then had to chase it down a hill. And I'm not joking, it was chasing it down a hill. So by the time I'd got to the 18th hole, I'd had enough. And being a complete and total bloke that I am, and I say bloke because we all do it, I had the ump at this point, and so I just kicked the ball as hard as I could at the flag. Now, the funny thing was I actually did break the flag in half. The bad thing was that I was immediately in pain afterwards. And initially, I just thought I felt like a groin strain. I've had one of them before playing football. I thought, give it a few days, it will sort itself out, nothing major. So anyway, we come back from our holiday and I noticed that I've now got a rather large lump on the right side of my groin. So at this point I'm thinking, hang on a minute, this looks a little bit more serious than what I've seen a groin strain look in the past. So I start looking online, which is the worst thing to do because you look online and you normally find all these horror stories. And of course I did find that, it could just be swelling from the groin strain. Give it a couple of weeks, see what happens. But then also I'm finding inguinal hernia and I'm thinking, oh God, I hope it's not that. So anyway, long and short of it, I left it for 6 weeks, which is the longest time it takes really for a groin strain to repair itself. And it didn't go, so I went to the doctors and sure enough, it was an inguinal hernia. At this point, it was getting quite painful. It was affecting how I work, how I sleep, a lot of things. Couldn't weight train, obviously. And I was getting constant pain because the hernia was leaning on 2 nerves. One that basically went to the right side of my scrotum and one that went to my hip. So I was getting a constant pain shooting down that side all the time. I couldn't sit on the sofa, it was too low, which then meant I've spent the last 5.5 months sitting in my gaming chair because it's the only thing I could actually sit in that was high enough and supported. And so, it's gone on and on since then. I had various appointments, I'd had scans, and this is where it gets interesting. So, right before Christmas, I go and have an ultrasound scan. And the woman basically tells me I'm going to put you through as emergency because it looks like it's strangulated. Now, the thing that got me was they were quite happy with me to go home at this point, knowing it could be strangulated, purely because this was the day before Christmas Eve and they clearly wanted to go home. I mean, they'd moved my appointment early, 2 hours earlier, and they admitted on the phone because they wanted to go home because it's Christmas. So I was quite surprised that they let me walk out of the hospital knowing it could be strangulated. So I didn't get a phone call a couple of days after Christmas. It's my GP's receptionist, quite panicked, saying to me, you need to get yourself to A&E right now. And I'm like, oh, okay, why is that? And they're like, well, because this could be strangulated. And I'm saying to her, they knew this in the hospital on the 23rd. And she said, well, yeah, they did, but they shouldn't have let you leave like that. So you can see where I'm going with this, right? This has not been an easy road, right? So I go to A&E. I sit there for, 4.5 hours. Finally get through, and it turns out they're going to try and push me through for surgery, because although it wasn't strangulated, they were saying there's a good chance it could become that. So anyway, moving forward a bit further than that, I then get my surgery. Tell a lie, I get a date with a consultant. I go and see the consultant. He then says to me, be at this hospital at this time on this date tomorrow, and we'll get you sorted out for an emergency surgery. So anyway, I do what he says. I go in, I get taken through. I'm sitting in a corridor for a good majority of the day, and then eventually I do get moved onto a ward. I go nil by mouth for 3 days, because each day they were saying your surgery's going to be today, your surgery's going to be today, and it didn't happen. So I was 3 days nil by mouth, and by the time each day they took me off of nil by mouth, it was too late to get a meal in, because they no longer were serving it. So you can imagine by then I was starting to get to a point where I'd really had enough. And then they took me in for the surgery. So on that third night, so I got the surgery. I come out the following day, less than 24 hours later, they discharged me, and everything seemed hunky-dory. A bit sore, but I was getting around. Gradually each day my strength was coming back. I was getting more to a point that it was me. Until last week. So the bad thing about this is, while this was going on last week, my wife had come down with pneumonia, and she's got a lung condition, so very worrying. She was finding it very hard to breathe, let alone talk. And then I suddenly come down with huge pains in my my right lung. Now, the only way I can describe this, I say lung, I mean it was across the chest a bit as well, but mainly the right side back of me, if you like, where your lung would be. So the only way I can describe the pain, if you imagine someone grabbing your lung, crushing it, and then sticking a sword through it at the same time, every time you try and get a breath. That's what it felt like. So instead of getting a full lung of air like you're hearing now, and you can probably hear I'm out of breath even now, still issues, but we'll get to that. If you can imagine that I'm getting little sips of air. And it got that bad that I actually was getting to a point where I couldn't sit down. I was having to stand just to be able to breathe. And at that point, my wife called the ambulance. The ambulance came out. They took me to a local walk-in. And the walk-in said to me, it could be that you got a blood clot on your lung. And I'm thinking, no, it can't be that, surely. You know, and I'm thinking that, because I'll tell you what it felt like. It felt like really bad trapped wind, which you can get after surgery. And I'm only like, I was less than 3 weeks out of surgery at this point, right? So I'm thinking that's what it is. So anyway, by the time I leave the walk-in, the pain's gone. So I thought, right, okay, well, what I'll do is I'll take this form he's give me. If I get up in the morning and it's off again, straight to A&E with this letter he's given me, and we'll get this looked at. So I wake up the following morning, and I'm talking to the wife, and I'm like, pain's all right, don't seem to be having any pain. So hopefully it was just trap wind from the surgery. And then I cough into the sink in the bathroom, and there's a huge clot of blood in the sink. Now that was a real eye-opener, that, because, you know, if you've just coughed up blood, I mean, the general rule of thumb is get your ass to hospital, right? You know, which is exactly what happened. Wife took me there, couldn't stay because obviously she's still getting over her own illness, which was nearly gone at this point. And 20 minutes after I went into A&E, my left lung started hurting, same as the right. And at this point, embarrassing as it was for me, and it was really embarrassing, I was screaming down A&E at this point. Not literally screaming like a girl, but, you know, I was yelling out in pain. And I was rushed through A&E into major care, I think it was. And then from there to resus within about 20 minutes. They obviously were really worried. And I, of course, found out why. So I got told after a CT scan, which was the most painful scan I've ever had, because trying to lay flat when your lungs are doing this to you and you can't breathe, because laying down was the worst. I honestly thought I was going to die. So I get told after my CT scan in resus that I've basically got blood clots on both my lungs. Most likely from the surgery. So yeah, so that's where I'm at. I spent the week in hospital. I went in obviously on the Friday through A&E, and I came out on the Wednesday. So and I'm recording this now on the Friday. So yeah, I'm on tablets, blood thinners. I've got to be really careful. They did bung me on antibiotics. I was on 2 different types of them. I was stuck on painkillers, as well as your normal paracetamols. I mean, basically, I could have rattled every day the amount of medication I was on. And I'm still on a lot of it now. Because it's the thing, these blood clots are not going to go, not straight away. You know, like I could be looking at a minimum of 3 months on blood thinners. So, yeah. Yeah, it's thrown up some challenges because obviously, you know, it's more time off work. It's more time I'm not getting paid. You know, I've got to really be careful about what I'm doing. You know, like in the past, you might bang your elbow on a wall and not think anything of it. Now I've got to be worried about that, right? Because now I could start an internal bleed. So I have to be very careful and be thinking about everything I'm doing. And like I say, as you can tell, the more I'm talking in this video, the more out of breath I'm getting as well. So yeah, it's took its toll on me. I'm not going to lie, I've lost quite a bit of weight. I've not been able to weight train or do anything to keep myself fit. So my fitness levels have gone down, and that's something that never sits right with me because I like to stay active and stay fit and stay in shape. You know, I've been reduced to a point where now I have to literally just sit still and do nothing. Obviously they're encouraging me to get up and move around because you have to with clots. It's a bad thing to sit still too long. But obviously nothing that overexerts me too much. So I can't get stressed, which is hard for me, especially if I go back to work. You know, in my line of work, it's a stressful job. So I'm having to weigh all these things up. So now, like I said at the beginning, this is not a video for you guys to feel sorry for me. That's not the point of this video at all. You know, there are people on this planet that are going through a much worse time than I am. But this was a video to try and explain why I've not been around much, why things have not been consistent, you know, like why streams are meant to be happening and then they're not happening. Good example, the last one was meant to be going up Wednesday. Well, I didn't get out of hospital until an hour and a half, 2 hours before that was set to go. So there was no way that was happening. So rescheduled it back to the 1st of March. So just wanted to do this, guys, you know, just to say, stick with me. I will be back. I will be doing stuff. But at the moment, I'm trying to get to grips with what's going on with me and trying to sort myself out as best I can and dealing with this new challenge. So, you know, yeah, just bear with me, guys. So anyway, I know a bit of a depressing video in it, but I just thought you guys deserve to really know what was happening with me, you know. So yeah, anyway, I'm not going to say I hope you enjoyed this video because I'm sure a lot of you probably haven't. But until next time, take care, stay safe. Nerdy Geezer out.